There is nothing like the anticipation of the reading of a will to bring out the true nature of those that are about to inherit. I am truly proud to say that my dear Edmund has already shown himself to be the same unselfish and caring man he's always been. Wesley and Violet are also showing the quality of their very fine upbringing. It is not surprising, however, that Bernard is showing his darker and more lostness side even more than ever. So I guess you could say, let the greed begin.
I do believe I feel an early evening breeze.
I do believe you're right. I thought I was going to melt at the service of the cemetery today. Why on earth would Uncle Everett specify he wanted his service to be held at high noon is way beyond me.
Well, I must admit, I almost dispensed with all propriety and ripped my girdle off right in the middle of that service. I was going to faint dead away.
That is contrary to my way of thinking. I don't understand why you women wear those things all in the heat of summer, all trussed up like a picnic ham. Never catch me wearing one of those things.
I should hope not.
Oh, you know what I meant.
Ooh, am I dreaming or do I actually feel a slight breeze?
My, is that a welcome relief?
Say, where's Bernard and Edmund at? I saw Bernard bending Edmund's ear for a fairly well during dinner. Is he still harping on the whereabouts of that treasure?
You know, Wesley, if there is a treasure, maybe we should concern ourselves with finding it. I mean, I hate to think of all that wealth hidden behind walls or under floorboards or secreted away in some secret spot on the grounds. I mean, that just doesn't sit right with me. We're not actually thinking about keeping the place, are we? I'd sure hate to sell Willomere and then hear about the new buyer finding that treasure.
I just don't see why it concerns Bernard at all. If there is any treasure found, it is the property of you and Edmund and myself to do with as we see fit. You know, Violet, this is your last chance at salvation. That man's going to spend you in a rack and ruin. You'll spend the rest of your days living in poverty, total poverty.
Wesley, I have had just about enough of you for one day. You have been at me ever since we arrived here.
Well, all I'm saying is that if you let that guy get his hands on any of your inheritance here, well, you're not getting any younger. You ever consider that?
Would you please stop? Would you leave Violet alone? We are so tired of the way you've been harping on that girl all day.
I'm trying to make a point here. With what she's coming into, she can live a real fine life without having to worry about that bloodsucker relieving her of all of it. You can live a real fine life. You can finally do something with your life.
Wesley, my personal life is none of your business, and I will thank you to stay out of it, as is my relationship with my husband, Bernard. Stay out of my business.
Violet is right, Wesley. You mustn't interfere in someone's marriage. Honey, a marriage is a sacred vow with God. And God keeps a record, you know. You trying to coax Violet to break her marriage vows is not going to bode well with your record come Judgment Day.
Look, I just think we ought to be looking for it is all.
My record come Judgment Day? What about his record come Judgment Day?
Bernard, Mr. Underhill has not even read the will yet. For all we know, we may not be inheriting much of anything at all. Uncle Everett was known for his charitable nature, you know. Perhaps the largest part of his estate went to the church. After all, Mr. Underhill did say that he had to spend considerable time with Uncle Everett's pastor regarding his final wishes before coming back to the house. What do you suppose that meant?
You young'uns still spouting. Lord Almighty. After all these years, you've been doing it since you was a little kid. Well, I can't understand why you can't find a little respect for the fact that your uncle passed on and leave it alone for a little while.
And why should today be any different than any other day? We are who we are. And as long as Wesley's within 50 feet of it, there's going to be spatting. That's just a fact.
My relationship with my sister is my business, and I'll thank you to kindly stay out of it.
Violet is my wife. Therefore, your treatment of her is my business.
What about your treatment of her, Bernard Beauchamp? We're leaving her all her money all these years? And what about all those floozies you've been messing around with for the longest of time? I say what you done to her is a far sight worse than what anyone else ever did.
You take that back, Wesley Hammond. I have never been unfaithful to Violet.
You stop that! Stop it! I still have that paddle I used to use when you was little. And I'm not afraid to use it, even now.
I'll be good.
Now here comes Mr. Underhill.
If you all just settle down, I believe we can proceed with the matters at hand. Will you all please take a seat? Now, as per Mr. Hammond's instructions, I will begin the reading of the will. Let it be known, I'm reading this will on July 23rd, 1953, after the event of the death and subsequent burial of my client, Everett Hammond. I, Everett Hollingsworth Hammond, being a sound mind and body, do declare this to be my last will and testament in order to convey all my earthly belongings upon my death. My estate is to be officiated over by my legal representative and executor, Mr. Carson Underhill, Esquire, to whom I have conveyed complete knowledge and understanding of my wishes in these matters. First, I leave our family Bible, which contains all our ancestral records, to the care of my church to be archived so that our history can be recorded and maintained for all time. With it, I also leave the sum of $50,000 to be used to continue the maintenance of the church and do the Lord's work. Second, I leave the sum of $200,000 to my housekeeper, Miss Ida Mae Pruitt, for all the years of such very fine care she tended to myself and my home. Yes, ma'am. Ida Mae is to be allowed the privilege of continuing to live out the balance of her years on the premises as long as the property remains under family ownership. Third, I bequeath the balance of my estate to include all my financial holdings as well as our family's plantation house and property, which is deeded and known as Willomere, to be divided equally between my only living relatives, they being my niece, Violet Hammond Beauchamp, and my nephews, Wesley Hammond and Edmund Hammond. Willomere was passed down to me by my father and his father before him, and so on, and thus has been owned and maintained under the Hammond family name since it was built by our ancestor Philip Zachary Hammond in the year 1761. It is my fervent wish that ownership of our ancestral home continue on under the family name so that its treasure can be kept secure. After the completion of the reading of my will, the diary of Philip Hammond will be passed on to my heirs for them to read, thus being able to understand the whereabouts of the family treasure of which I speak. This diary must be read aloud to all those mentioned in my will immediately after my funeral. Nothing I have bequeathed in this, my last will and testament, is to be passed on until the diary is read to all to its completion. This I do record as the sum total of my last wishes, signed and attested to this the 29th day of March, 1945, Everett Hollingsworth Hammond.
Well, what do you know? See, there is a treasure.
Violet.
Bernard, I'm going to ask you to refrain from commenting at this time. Somehow you're only managing to make things worse. But Wesley, the will did say there was a treasure. Clear as day. You can't deny that.
Stop it, you two. Mr. Underhill, does this mean that we will not be able to sell the property?
No. Remember, it only states that it was Mr. Hammond's wish. It was his wish that you keep the property in the family name. Now, after y'all have a chance to go through this diary, it's up to the three of y'all to make a final decision on what's to become of Willomere.
Now, that diary should tell us where the treasure is. I mean, we have to keep this place at least as long as it takes us to find the treasure.
We? You got a mouse in your pocket or something, Bernard? Bernard, what I got to do to get it through your skull? If there is any treasure on this property, it is the property of Edmund, Violet, and myself. So stick your tongue back in your mouth and stop your drooling, boy, because as long as there's breath left in my body, I'll make sure you never see a damn cent of the money from here.
Bernard, I must ask you to let Violet, Wesley, and myself handle these matters.
But Edmund.
Bernard, please.
I will abide by your wishes, my dear. But as your husband, I must register my protest regarding the possibility of being disavowed of any information held in that diary.
Well, I guess I'll be leaving now. Y'all know where I can be reached if you need me.
Good night.
All right, Mr. Underhill.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know about you all, but now that I've discovered that I'm a woman of wealth, I believe that I am just going to retire for the evening. You girls are much younger than I am. You take yourselves in the kitchen and do the dishes yourselves.
Are we going to have to cook our own meals as well?
Aw, let her enjoy her newfound wealth. She is getting on in years, and it has been a really long day.
Indeed it has. Edmund, why don't you hold on to that diary for the time being? We'll commence reading it after breakfast tomorrow. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I'll be looking for my pillow after my nightcap.
That sounds fine with me. If memory serves me, there's a mighty fine bottle of bourbon in there just waiting to be savored.
Oh, Edmund, if y'all are playing bartender, I'd love it if you could stir up a Tom Collins for me.
Oh, me too.
Vodka gimlet if you're buying.
Nobody asked me what I'd like to have.
No one asked us either, Bernard. We simply volunteered the information.
Bernard, you ain't had no problem opening your mouth all day. What's the matter? You afraid to ask for a little bitty drink? You need a special invitation or something, boy?
Stop it. Stop it, everybody. Bernard, get yourself inside and tell Edmund what you want to drink. Or better yet, make it yourself. What's the matter with you? You've never been shy before.
Very well. I will. And maybe I just make it a double.
Dear God, that man thinks he comes from royalty or something.
Wesley, do you think it would hurt you to at least be polite to him once in a while?
Actually, well, yeah, I think it would.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
You mustn't worry yourself, dear. The doctor said there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to have children, even yet. It'll happen. You'll see. What do you say we forego the ice cream for now and get into reading this diary?
Good idea.
All right, then. Well, let's get to it. I'll do the reading if nobody objects.
No, go right ahead.
Go right ahead.
Go on, Edmund, go on.
Y'all better not let Wesley catch you doing that.
Oh, Violet, I was just...
Give it a rest, Bernard. You think I don't know what you're doing? You really think I have no idea what you're up to after all these years?
August 12th, 1764. Alas, today my beautiful Eloise gave me our first child, and I will call her Eve.